And good evening once again, everybody. Welcome to another Hoops HD bracket. What are we doing, David?
Under the radar.
Under the radar. Under the
Under
radar.
the radar. Our
Yes.
favorite.
Welcome to Under the Radar, the one and only podcast anywhere in the country that focuses only on the under the radar schools and has a puppet on it.
Yes. I don't know which is more unique.
I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. Joining me, as always, David Griggs. David, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, pretty good.
I
I
thought
am
you were a
really
little morning. I
what's
thought you
that?
were morning.
Well, I am, but I mean, I sort of am, but I'm feeling a lot better because our Lopes waiver movement is gaining traction. I believe you have this, but look at what Sports Illustrated did with their first bracket projection. Are we getting this up?
Are you getting it up? I don't see it. Were you
Oh,
pulling it
I
up,
thought
David?
you had it.
Oh, I thought you had it. Okay, well, neither of us have it.
Well, neither of us have it, but Sports Illustrated is projecting the Grand Canyon Antelopes into the field on the 16 seed line, which means they are just assuming correctly, probably that that the Lopes are going to get the waiver. Is this what we have here?
No, we don't have that. I do have something else here, though. This is a once again another screenshot from the latest Lopes broadcast with the hashtag Lopes waiver showing up again.
Yes.
Just wanted to point that out. Another shout out to the Grand Canyon Lopes TV network here. Did get that back on TV again. But yeah, the Lopes waiver movement is going. Sports Illustrated just released one of their first bracket of the season and had Grand Canyon in as the champion from the WAC.
Oh yeah.
Clearly, SI is on our side.
They are, and I mean, some are saying that was just an oversight. I don't think so. I don't think it was at all.
No, I mean, how can you put a bracket together without looking to see who's eligible and who's ineligible?
Right. Yes.
I didn't see Cal State Northridge in that bracket. Did you?
No, I did not see them in there.
I didn't see Southern Mississippi in that bracket. Did you?
Didn't see Southern Miss. Didn't see Northern Kentucky. Didn't see a lot of teams, but we saw the Lopes.
Now, David, the reason I thought you were in mourning was because of an announcement that came out today. There is no way it is going to be any way possible for Kansas and Missouri to play this season.
That is very disappointing. Well, okay, it is possible because Mizzou is not playing. For those of you that haven't heard, we'll talk probably more about this. But Missouri self-imposing a ban from both the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament. That's sort of like me self-imposing a ban from winning the Powerball lottery, but they did it nonetheless. But because they're not playing in the SEC tournament, Chad, they can add an extra game to their schedule. So Kansas has the option of bypassing the Big 12 tournament and playing Missouri instead. So, no, I'm not in mourning. And the second reason I'm not in mourning is because, and again, we'll get to this later, we have the possibility of a quintuple header in the SEC. 5 tournament games in one day. I'm already tweeting at them. I plan on going there sometime this week and making this happen.
Well, David, it's not going to happen. It's already been announced that will not be what happens.
It'll change. We'll get it changed.
But you realize there isn't one other way that we can get Kansas, Missouri. Kansas doesn't necessarily have to pass up the Big 12 tournament. What they could do is cancel their second game against Oklahoma because that's too intense. It's going to be too intense of a game.
Oh, yeah,
anyhow.
too intense of a game. Yes.
And as Utah taught us, we don't like intense games. It would be definitely a lot less intense though to play Missouri.
Oh boy, yeah.
But anyhow, let's get right into the under the radar stuff, and we like to start out by repeating our definition of what it means to be an under the radar team. I think you defined it last week, David. I guess it's my turn up here, but under the radar teams means, first of all, it can't be any team that's in one of the power conferences, which are the ACC, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, SEC. The Big East is basketball, at least, is also a power conference. Also can't be in one we consider one of these standard multi-bid leagues, which are the American, the Atlantic 10, and although they may be subject to review after the season or sometime next season for their inclusion, for now the Mountain West is still considered a multi-bid league, although we're pretty certain it's going to be a one-bid league this year. Mm-hmm. The other two exceptions is you can't be a top 25 rated team in either of the polls, which is where Gonzaga is. And you also can't be a national brand school, which Gonzaga also is at this point. We also consider BYU a national brand school. So those two teams are not under the radar, although we will be discussing the West Coast Conference I may mention them a little bit here.
Yeah.
Everybody else is under the radar. And what we like to do is go through each of the conferences kind of in alphabetical order, discuss where the conference is, what we like and don't like, who we think is going to end up getting into the NCAA tournament from the conference, whether we can get 2 bids out of the conference, and do a little preview of some of the upcoming games and end with our under the radar top 10 lists. But we also like to start in one specific conference, and we kind of change up that conference every week.
Yeah, sort of a highlighted conference, if you will.
And while I strongly argued that the Southland should be our conference this week, David vetoed me and went with the Mid-American instead.
Yes. This conference is a lot of fun, and especially by under the radar standards. I don't think people from outside this geographic region realize just kind of the intensity of some of these rivalries. You have Akron and Kent State, which is probably one of the bigger under the radar rivalries. Last year during rivalry week, I think we rated it number 1, but you have Bowling Green, Ohio, and then Bowling Green, Toledo, and this conference is pretty intense. And the other so it's just a lot of fun. And sometimes one of the things that we've seen in the past is that it looks like there was, at least going in the conference play, at least 1 and sometimes 2 teams that could play their way inside the bubble if they ran over this league. But one of the things is nobody's really been able to do it. We thought last year Toledo might be able to do it. They got beaten up in conference play a little bit. We liked Buffalo a lot last year too, but they kind of fell. This is a league that beats up on itself, and when not that that's unusual, but in under the radar circles, like if that's going to happen, you need to go out and schedule hard and win big out of conference, like the non under the radar school, like the multi-bid leagues. They traditionally win about 70 or 80% of their out of conference games, which is why they're able to get so many bids in. This league, not quite there yet. The records are good, but the schedules were kind of weak this year, Chad. Not what we're used to seeing out of this league.
The schedules, there's only 2 teams with top 100 strength of schedules. One of them was Buffalo. A lot of that was games that Bobby Hurley had scheduled before he took the job at Arizona State.
Right.
The other team is Eastern Michigan, actually with a 47 strength of schedule, but a very misleading 47, considering they also played 4 non-D1 games in there. So
yeah,
it's not. You should really be a lot worse than that if you counted those non-D1 games as a 300 plus type of game. It would be an awful strength of schedule.
And this is a noticeable within the last 2 years, really, a very noticeable difference in scheduling conference wide. And one can't help but wonder: is this some sort of mandate? Was it an agreement? Like we used to see Miami go out and play Big Ten teams, SEC teams. Akron played a hard schedule. A lot of these teams, especially the better programs in the conference, like Akron, Kent, Miami, at least under the I'm blanking, Charlie Cole's days. Buffalo, even when Witherspoon was there, we don't see that at all anymore. All of a sudden, and you kind of wonder. I don't think that's good for the league. It kind of keeps them out of the limelight. It kind of limits their chances at getting statement wins. And yeah, everybody comes in with a bloated record, but nobody comes in with any actual meat.
Yeah, if you look at it right now, you've got 4 teams in this conference with double-digit overall wins, but we're not talking to anybody close to being in the bubble. Akron's 12-3, Northern Illinois is 10-2, but they are not teams that I think anybody's seriously discussing as being a team that could get into the bubble contention. Now, I suppose Northern Illinois being 3-0 in conference, if they completely win out, they don't lose again to the conference title game, they're going to get some discussion. But even then, this is a team that didn't really beat anybody of note all season and will have only be in the discussion because they did a Stephen F. Austin of just piling up and piling up and piling up victories, including 4 non-D1 games, just like a couple other teams in this conference.
Right, yeah.
And actually, that's 14-2. I'm sorry for Northern Illinois. I was giving you the D1 record there of 10-2. So let's go to if we include the non-D1 games, we're actually at 8 teams in this conference with double-digit victories already. And only 2 teams with losing records overall, being Western Michigan and Miami of Ohio, which do have something in common with their off-season schedule that we recognized before we went on the air. But
oh boy. We'll get to Northeastern later.
Yeah. Northeastern really loves those two schools, but
Yeah.
I think the big story in the MAC so far this season really has been Northern Illinois. This was my
Yeah.
under the radar game of the day a few nights ago when they played at Toledo. Very nice win for them. Not a great Toledo team by any means, but any road win in the MAC is generally a good win. The way this conference does beat up on each other.
Yeah, it is, and I have it right here. Toledo at home this year, 4-2. So a pretty, I mean, and they're typically very strong at home. So yeah, a very nice win, I would say, for a Northern Illinois program that to say that they were awful up until 2 years ago is understating how bad they were. Or you can't overstate how bad this program was. And I know we just kind of beat up on them a little bit for having such a weak schedule, but in their case, I think when you're as bad as they were, and we're talking sub 300 bad, you almost just need to schedule anybody you can beat just to get used to winning. Any game you win is notable.
Yeah, I mean they're 14-2 overall. Only I think 4 more wins will guarantee them a winning season overall. For the first time, I think in 10 to 12 years. Even though they've been a lot improved the last couple of years, they haven't broken that 500 mark. I think they're going to clearly be doing that this year, absent a complete collapse here. But I'm starting to wonder now. Akron went and lost their first game of the season at Central Michigan this past week. Could Northern Illinois actually win this conference?
Well, they're kind of in the what I would think the weaker division would be. It still seems too preposterous that Northern Illinois could do that, but I don't know. We shall see.
We shall see. I am still keeping an eye on the Central Michigan team. They were our preseason pick. They were not very good non-conference, in part because Chris Fowler wasn't playing. He is healthy again. I don't believe he's actually really putting up the types of numbers that. Well, he is. He's been putting up 20, 18, double digits most of the games that he's been playing. So with him back, I think Central Michigan's a lot different team, and I think that they will make some noise in this conference by the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
But on that note, David, let's turn back to the beginning and start as we go through the conferences in alphabetical order, starting up in the America East, where I think we've been doing the same thing again and again, every one of these podcasts this season. It's Albany and Stony Brook.
Yeah, it is. And even though we're just like 3 games into conference play, it's like they're already sprinting out ahead. They're both 3-0. No one else above 500 in this league already.
Yeah, Stony Brook got to 3-0 with a win tonight. So they're both sitting there at 3-0. Both looking pretty good too. It's going to be fun when they do start playing each other. I think trying to get their Stony Brook schedule up here. The game at Stony Brook is going to be January 22nd, at Albany February 17th. Those are 2 games that at least one, if not both of them, will probably be the under the radar game of the day because those are the 2 games that will probably decide this conference.
And I was kind of expecting a little bit from Vermont or New Hampshire. Normally there's more than 2 horses in this race, but this year it's Albany and Stony Brook are both pretty good, and then it's a cliff. No one else really is. I don't. You'll have to know. Is anyone else anywhere even above 500 in this league? I don't think so.
In terms of overall records, including non-D1, New Hampshire is 8-7. Vermont is 9-8.
Okay, yeah.
If you want to go to D1 only, Vermont is 8-8. So that's the only 500 team. New Hampshire has 3 non-D1 wins.
Yeah, and I mean the bottom of this league. I mean you're talking really, really bad. With UMBC was a sub 300 team last year, one of the worst in the country. They're not that much better this year, and they're not in last place. They're ahead of 4 other teams.
Well, they're actually tied with Maine and Lowell, but ahead of Binghamton. Yeah, but when you talk about those teams, I think Hartford's pretty bad also. I think New Hampshire and Vermont will be competitive in this conference. They'll be solid 3 and 4 seeds, but I think you got to have the top 2 teams, next 2 teams, and whatever.
Yeah.
So, I'll put it that way. But let's go over to the Atlantic Sun Conference, where very disappointing start to ASUN play for NJIT, losing at home to a pretty weak South Carolina upstate team this year.
Yeah, real disappointing, real surprising. NJIT. Not an easy place to play. It's a really intense environment. We really like this team. They were very successful last year. by their standards, had everyone back. And again, it's just game one, but still not the kind of start you want. And when you're trying to keep pace with North Florida, one or two losses may be too many to overcome.
Yeah, it will be. I mean, North Florida is now 2-0 in conference, 13-6 overall, getting a little bit over the 100 numbers in terms of RPI and KenPom ratings, but head and shoulders above everybody else, including NJIT. And NJIT's really got to bounce back here if they want to even be contending for second place. And it's not going to be something like, I guess, Gulf Coast is the other team that might be worth looking at here. But at this point, I expect North Florida to roll over this league and maybe only lose once or twice in conference play and ride the home court to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I agree. And they got a good program. Matt Driscoll has done remarkably well there. They were a transitional team, I believe, when he's taken it over. And now winners of the conference last year, front runners this year, just a tremendous job that he's done there in Jacksonville.
And we talked about North Florida being able to get the home court for the conference tournament. Another conference that I love the way they do it. In the Big Sky, the regular season champion gets to host the conference tournament. Only the top 8 teams, only the top 7 teams make it. So they get a first round bye into the semifinals. They reseed. Yes. So many favorable things to the top seed in the Big Sky.
Chad, you're looking at your notes from last year.
Oh, crap.
It's 2016, Chad. January 2016.
I did it again, didn't I?
Yeah.
The Big Sky Conference this year, everybody's invited. It's a standard format. It's all in Reno. So for winning the conference regular season title, David, what do you get?
You get to wear white. That's it.
You get to you don't have to bring your road jerseys with you at all to the conference tournament.
Right.
Right now, Montana and Weber State both undefeated. Idaho right behind them at 2-1. I think it's these 3 teams are the 3 teams that are going to be leading the way in this conference.
Yeah, I think so too. I know I know Montana was really sluggish a little bit out of conference, but all in all, I do think they look like the best team. That's who I like in this conference more than anybody else. I mean, you can't really ignore Weber, but the way Montana has looked, and I realize that they're just 6-6, but they did have the win against Boise. We're not going to talk about how they must have gone out and celebrated because they lost to that. They were right in there at Gonzaga, and and right now they've won, I think, 6 of their last 7, so they're really on a roll now.
They are, and that one loss was to Kansas, which is a little bit out of their class. But
right.
I mean, and just for probably the last time this season, we really liked Sacramento State during the non-conference schedule.
Right.
Out to an 0-3 start, only winless team in conference play, and I think I've written them off at this point.
Yes.
Over in the Big South, a team that I've not written off, and in fact, if they keep winning, may be cracking the under-the-radar top 10 list in a few weeks here, and that's these High Point Panthers. I am very high on this team.
Yeah, High Point.
Can't get where I went there. No.
Yeah, very, very high on High Point. Yeah, and they've looked really good. And, going into the Presby over the weekend, they got a big game at Winthrop. Winthrop's been a little bit disappointing this year, a surprising 2-3 start in conference play. But some of their losses, 3-point loss to North Carolina State in overtime, a game they really had a chance to win and arguably should have won. Another overtime loss, a close game to William and Mary. So you're talking about losing on the road to solid NIT, even potential NCAA tournament.
Well, you take a look at all 4 of their losses, David. Their other 2 losses, 3 points at Georgia, 4 points at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Their biggest loss is 4 points, and all 4 of their losses are against teams that are at least NIT teams, if not NCAA teams, all on the road. That's one of the things I really like about this. They should have won the NC State game. They should have won the Bill and Mary game.
Yeah, and they should be hosting the conference tournament if they finish first, but they're not.
Well, they just have to go over to Campbell. I don't know. How far is that from High Point? I'm not that certain. We'll have to take a look into that one for you.
It shouldn't matter because they should do campus sites. It's a freaking bus league.
We do want to note that UNC Asheville is also out to a 5-0 start in this conference, but I still like High Point better than.
How about Gardner Webb? I was not expecting much out of them at all, but wow, are they off to a good start.
Yeah, they got to play Coastal, Longwood, Campbell, Radford, and Presbyterian already.
Well, they do play in the Big South, Jeff.
Well, they basically have gotten 3 home games and 2 road games against probably the 2 worst teams in the conference. So I think it's a little bit of a false 5-1. Although they lost to High Point at home, it was a 2-point loss. So it was a close game. That was back in the beginning of December. Actually, kind of surprised me that game.
Yeah.
The Big West. I still think we could have multiple teams fighting here for the championship, despite how much we liked UC Irvine for a while and now Hawaii as well.
I like those two, and I know who the other one you're going to say is. They came in just 4-9 against Div 1 competition anyway, but Long Beach out to a 2-0 start. And we knew that once they got in the conference, they would and started taking on people more their size. It's a little more manageable that they would probably be one of the players in this league. I don't really like anybody else. I know you like the Santa Barbara team. I like Hawaii, Irvine, and Long Beach. That's about it as far as winning the league goes.
I'm not writing off the Santa Barbara team. It's just some of the numbers that I like on them. They actually had a tougher strength of schedule overall than Long Beach.
How the hell did
not? They're number 5. Long Beach is number 12 in the nation right now. Their RPI is 54, which is actually the best RPI in the conference right now. But they are 0-1 in conference, 6-8 overall, 5-8 against T1. So I'm not sold on them yet, but I think that they've got the potential there to make some noise in this conference. But I really do like this Hawaii team. I know they have not yet played on the road. That will be changing finally this week when they go to Riverside and Fullerton.
Right.
Other than the trip to Texas Tech, I guess. But.
Yeah, and again, Texas Tech a little better than we all thought. No one thought Texas Tech was going to be good. Not anyone. So anyway, not a bad loss there.
Over in the Colonial, we discussed Northeastern already. The team that would have a great record if it wasn't for the play the 2 worst teams in the Mid American. But this conference is doing what I was worried that it was going to do heading into the season, which was have so many teams that are so equal, but all good teams that they're going to beating each other up and give the conference no chance at an at-large bid. And that's kind of what we're seeing already. Everybody has at least 1 loss, and everybody in Delaware has at least 1 win.
Right. And again, overall, the conference did really well. A lot of teams were solid, and a lot of teams had at least the paper they needed to get inside the bubble if they ran away from the league, which could still happen. William and Mary 3-1, Hofstra 3-1. I don't even know about. I mean, Northeastern probably had the best. I think their ceiling was the highest, but God, they had some letdowns out of conference. No one really came in. There weren't multiple teams that came in that could have gotten inside the bubble without running away from the league. And very early on here, it doesn't look like anybody's going to do that.
Yeah, William and Mary, I think, and we've kind of bounced around almost each week over which team we think has the best shot. I think William and Mary now does, mostly because their power rating numbers are the highest of anybody in the conference at the moment, including their strength of schedule being the second best behind Drexel, who's obviously not in contention here at 3-12.
Right.
They do have the nice win at NC State, a home win over Old Dominion, that High Point win even that we discussed. But they really can't afford to lose probably more than 2 more conference games during the regular season and once in the conference tournament.
Right.
And when you've got to play Hofstra, Northeastern, James Madison, College of Charleston, UNC Wilmington, Elon, Towers in every game, I don't see how you can do that.
Right. Now, Bill and Mary, 4 of their next 5 are on the road. If they win all 5 of those, it's a different story. But Absolutely. Right now, we're speculating that they won't and that no one will really be able to run away from this league.
Talk about a team with a shot to run away from a league. Let's go over to Conference USA, where you've brought them up a couple weeks ago. I wasn't quite ready to get on the bandwagon yet, but now with 10 straight victories after a disappointing start to the season, the UAP Blazers are on my radar, David.
They're on mine too. And let me just say, let me reiterate that they're on my radar. I'm not subscribing to them yet. Of those 10 wins, 8 were at home. And some of them were against teams like Seattle, Upstate, South. I mean, one of their road wins was at South Florida.
Well, David, give a call over to Cincinnati. winning at South Florida is a big.
Of course it is. They certainly outperformed Cincinnati in that.
Nick Cronin thinks winning at Cincinnati is a huge deal. Sorry, winning at South Florida is a huge deal.
Yeah, they go on the road tomorrow. And it has been a very underwhelming Old Dominion team, but as underwhelming as they've been, they're still 8-0 at home. If UAB wins that game, then I think we start talking about them a little bit. I don't know. If they win that one, I'll be convinced, Chad.
Well, let me ask you this. If they can run away with this conference, maybe only one or two regular season losses, and I know they're hosting the conference tournament, at least it's in their home city. I know it's not on their home court. Is there a shot that they could sneak into maybe a first four at-large bid situation?
I don't want to say that it's impossible. One of the things, if they run away from it, you're talking about winning at Louisiana Tech, winning at Middle Tennessee, and winning at Old Dominion. Those are the only three games that I think are even noteworthy in that stretch. I don't know. I think that they would be in the discussion. I don't want to say that they would necessarily be inside the bubble. What they really needed to do was win some of those games. They lost to Illinois and they lost to Virginia Tech. Had they beaten Illinois, they face Iowa State, and even though they're not likely to win that game, at least it bumps them up a little bit. And they lost at Auburn. This team simply did not give themselves the chances they needed to prove themselves, in my opinion.
I'll tell you how much better the profile would have looked had they beaten Vatech, a game that went to overtime, had they won at Auburn, a game they lost by 1 point. Even if you say, okay, you lose the Illinois game and you have to play Vatech and not Iowa State in that tournament, the profile looks so much better, and they'd probably get votes in the top 25 poll, quite honestly.
Probably so. And the Auburn game that they lost, it was at Auburn. Yes, Auburn's strong at home. It was not against a full-strength Auburn team.
And Auburn has not looked very good this year overall.
So I just think, and it's disappointing, and we lament this and we lament this. We were down on Central Michigan, although they haven't proven to be good. SFA, another one. Murray State last year, another one. When you play in an under-the-radar conference, the rules aren't any different. You have to make a case for yourself. And if your conference does not allow you to do that, you cannot schedule the way UAB did out of conference. Do you agree? I think you do.
Yeah, I do agree. And UAB sitting with the 273 strength of schedule, second worst strength of schedule in all of Conference USA, or third worst, behind Florida International and Texas San Antonio. You've got to schedule. Middle Tennessee is the number 71 strength of schedule in the country. That's the way you've got to schedule if you want to be in contention. But Middle Tennessee's got to win a little more games than they've done. Also,
right. Well, I mean, it's twofold. You got to schedule hard, and you got to win. Right. I mean, it's just like anybody else, and you're not treated differently than the power conferences, in my opinion. They schedule hard and win. Now, granted, their conference provides them with opportunities, but still, like even Louisiana Tech going to Ohio State, to Memphis, to Ole Miss, they gave themselves chances that UAB did not give themselves.
Yeah. Just as an example, I'm looking at some of the power conferences now. We talked about that strength of schedule up there in the 200s. Among the 6 true power conferences, there's only one team with a strength of schedule worse than 200, and that's Northwestern. Everybody else is in the top 100, if not, then probably in the top 150 in the nation among the top 6 conferences. Well, I'm sorry, TCU is also at 210 strength of schedule. But,
okay.
But you're talking about 2 teams there that we've discussed on our Hoops HD report, at least it's Northwestern, how weakly they're scheduled.
Right.
If you look at Conference USA standings quickly before we move on, you may notice another team up there at 3-0 in Marshall. David, complete fraud here?
Absolutely, even by CUSA standards.
Okay. Well, they're 3-0 home wins over Western Kentucky, Florida Atlantic, and Florida International. So
yes, they've beaten the SoCon part of the conference.
We'll see you on
the South.
We'll see you at the bottom, towards the middle or bottom of the standings at the end of the season, Marshall. Thank you very much. The Horizon League, we got a decent little team here at the top of the Horizon.
Love this,
especially after what they did Friday night at Oakland was one of the most impressive games I've seen all season.
It was Oakland. That was by far their toughest remaining game, and they went in there and just ran away from them. This team has played 3 of their last 4 on the road. They really needed that one at Belmont, I think, but at least to get a little more safely inside the bubble. Off to a 3-0 start in conference. Haven't sweated yet. In who can beat this team? I mean, all the way through. I think Valpo wins out. I really do.
I think their toughest remaining test clearly is the game at Milwaukee. That they actually have, their next game is Milwaukee, but that's at home. At Milwaukee comes up the second to last game of the season, February 26th. That is absolutely, looking at the rest of their schedule, the toughest game remaining.
Probably so.
But what they did, not only destroying Oakland, but then to come off of that Oakland win 2 days later and win at Detroit, who is not that bad of a team, and blew them out 92-74.
Yeah, and you're hoping the committee is taking notice of this. I know we are. They're supposed to. Somebody's monitoring these under the radar conferences and reporting on it every week. Guess how many losses Detroit has at home?
One.
And they deserve credit for that. I mean, I know Detroit is not an NCAA tournament team. It's not even close. But to go there and win, it's not easy to win on the road at Detroit. And they've done it. I think Valpo clearly, if they run the table, they belong inside the bubble.
I agree with you. And then we're going to be talking our top 10 list in a little while, and I think you and I both have them very high rated. And just looking at a quick power number here, you always got to pay attention to somebody who's number 1 in the nation in something. And Ken Palm right now, Valpo is the number 1 adjusted defense in the nation. So just throw that number out there. Better than a team like Virginia, better than.
Right. And their losses, one of them that was kind of surprising was Ball State. Ball State has just 1 home loss so far, the other one at Oregon. A game that they never really threatened in that one, but they didn't get blown out. And then they went and won at Oregon State. I believe they're the only team that's won at Oregon State. So this team, you have to peel back the onion a little bit, but the meat is there, Chad.
I agree.
Yeah.
David, we have something in the Ivy League that no other conference has right now. We have 6 out of 8 teams that haven't lost a conference game yet.
This is amazing. An amazing start to the conference play here.
Of course, there have only been 2 conference games already. Harvard beat Dartmouth, and a game that Lee Del Vecchio and I went to, Princeton beat Penn. In a game that Penn pretty much had won, up about 13 points with, I think, under 2 minutes left. And, Steve Donahue used a little of his BC magic for Penn and found a way to blow the game. It was pretty impressive, honestly. But Princeton, maybe Harvard, Columbia, Yale. I think we got at least 4 teams here that are going to be in contention here throughout the season in the Ivy.
Yeah, I mean, it's normally a 1 or a 2 horse race. This year it's a 4. It should be a lot of fun. I don't like that there's not a conference tournament simply because there's no pressure out of conference to get the wins to land you inside the bubble. You and I have had that discussion, but now that the OOC part of the season is over, it's going to be a fun league. I think this is going to be the most fun we've seen in the Ivy for a while. Yeah,
we're going to see a couple more of the games between travel partners. Harvard and Dartmouth will play a second time. Brown and Yale play twice, and Columbia and Cornell will play twice over the next 2 weeks. But conference play in its normal Friday night, Saturday night, back-to-back games with the 2 travel partners playing at the other 2 travel partners won't actually start till January 29th. So we're still a couple weeks away from really being able to talk Ivy League and being able to see teams start separating from each other in this conference.
Right.
Metro Atlantic.
Okay.
The Monmouth Hawks.
Yes.
David, I know you are a lot higher on them than I am, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And I think we've had this debate a few times, but let's do this again here.
Okay.
Let me tell you what my issue is with Monmouth and why I had them in the 11-12 seed range on my last bracket and why I still would have them in that area.
Okay.
Yes, they won at UCLA.
Yes, they did.
They beat Notre Dame and USC on neutral courts. Yes, they won at Georgetown. They have, I think, 9 or 10 true road wins.
They have 7 true road wins.
5, 6, 7 true road wins, 9 wins away from home if you include the 2 neutral court wins. My problem is the UCLA wins, they're up and down. I know UCLA is a home court hero and they won at UCLA.
Yeah.
It was the first game of the season, though. You kind of give a little bit when it's the first game of the season. You really don't have the team having really gelled yet into the team. The Notre Dame win is not looking quite as good. The Georgetown win is looking fairly weak at the moment, quite honestly. And you have two very ugly losses here at Canisius and at Army. I know they played a ton of road games, and you can't expect to win every game on the road, but it's tough for me to forgive both of those games. And now they also have a loss to Dayton, and I'm getting a little suspicious of Dayton even. They lost to LaSalle. I'm not looking at this resume as quite as good, not because of what Monmouth's quality and number of road wins, well, not because of their number of road wins, but because of the quality of the wins and even the quality of the losses has been decreasing over the last couple of weeks. So the other teams they played have been hurting Monmouth, and that's why Monmouth has fallen.
Well, I mean, still, to have 7 true road wins, that's more than what the majority of the field will have already,
True.
And I think that number is going to grow. UCLA is a home court hero. They've been disappointing holistically, but they beat them at UCLA. No one else has. This is a team that beat Kentucky at home, that beat Arizona at home. They are a home court hero. The loss to USC, I don't think – has USC even lost at home? I don't think they have. Let me check that.
I'll confirm that here. USC does not have any home losses yet. Correct.
Okay, so you can't hold that against them at all, especially when they played them the following week on a neutral floor. Again, not even a true home game. They beat them. They beat Notre Dame away from home. They went to it again. Just when you win again, how excited should you be about winning at Cornell and winning at Rutgers? Probably not very, but Cornell's probably going to still win more than half of their home games. Rutgers may as well. It's just when you play, the committee says that you have to play away from home and win. It is harder to win on the road in college basketball than any other sport. It's not even the fans either. It's just the shooting background, knowing the floor. When you're playing against someone that practices in there 4 hours a day, 5 and 6 days a week, they have a tremendous advantage over you. I just think that winning 7 true road games is that's winning on the road in bulk. That's impressive.
They have 7 more true road games left in Metro Atlantic play. David, I think they got to win 6 out of 7. I think they got to be 13, maybe 12 true road wins to get an at-large bid. I'll put it that way.
Well,
one of the biggest one of them all coming up Friday night here at Iona, and probably the game this season in the Metro Atlantic.
Yeah, but my thing is, I know you like UCLA and USC more. Has UCLA or USC beaten anyone away from home other than Monmouth, who is inside the bubble? I mean, that's another thing to look at too.
I agree with you that I love their road wins. I'm just not convinced that this team is a 7 or 8 seed, which I think is around where you would have them right now, if I recall correctly.
7, 8, 9. I'd have them in on the first ballot. So 9, 8, more. Yeah, 7 to 9 range.
7 to 9 range. Again, I think they get there if they don't lose another game. I think they could be the 7th line easily if they don't lose another game, but I don't know that they can go the rest of the season without losing another game. I think Iona is a lot better team right now than they had been earlier this season. We'll see. Iona's hosting them Friday night. I still like the Siena team a little bit. That's coming up Monday night. Monmouth is hosting Siena.
Yeah, let's talk a little Iona real quick. I know we're on this, but they've won 5 in a row. You mentioned Iona unbeaten at home. So again,
and unbeaten in the Metro Atlantic as well as 6-0.
Yeah, so this is a big chance for Monmouth to again put more meat on what I think is already a pretty impressive profile.
Right, but it's also a chance. I mean, if Iona wins this game, it's a little tough to argue at this point. They now have They would have a 2-game lead over Monmouth in the Metro Atlantic standings, and I don't know how many more games Iona is going to lose in conference play. Monmouth may not be able to win the regular season title.
That's one of the things. I don't think Iona goes to Monmouth.
No, they do.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, it is a full double round robin here.
Oh, it is.
20 game schedule. The game of Iona at Monmouth will be coming up on February 19th.
Yeah.
But even then, Monmouth has to win that, has to get a little bit of help from somebody else. And I think if Monmouth finishes only tied or finishes in second place in this conference, it's next to impossible for the committee to give them an at-large bid.
Oh, it can be done. I'm going to SEC to get a quintuple header, and I will go to Indianapolis. I will go there.
Uh,
I've done it before.
We already discussed the Mid-American, so let's move over to the MEAC, where the Hampton Pirates are out to a 4-0 conference start and a very impressive 8-7 overall on the season. Best in the conference.
Yeah, really, really weak league. Not quite as weak as what we've seen the SWAC in recent years, but I don't think this team gets inside the first four.
I mean, we do not have
this conference. I'm sorry.
We do not have a top 200 KenPom, RPI, BPI, any of those ratings anywhere in this conference.
Yeah.
I mean, we have awful strengths of schedule. Hampton is 327 strength of schedule. I mean, this is a conference that didn't even go out and play a ton of bye games like the SWAC does to at least boost that non-conference strength of schedule. Hampton, during the season, their non-conference games, they were playing Northern Arizona, Coppin State, Nichols. Coppin State's actually a conference game, but Nichols State, Louisiana Monroe. They didn't go out and play a bunch of bye games at Virginia or at VCU or at some of the other local teams, Maryland, any of that stuff.
Right.
We're heading to Dayton here. I think no matter who wins this conference.
Right.
Maybe if Hampton literally does not lose another game, they can avoid the Dayton. I'll put it that way. But I mean, go undefeated in conference play, win the conference tournament, pull the double. I don't think it's going to happen though. Missouri Valley Conference, Wichita State. We mentioned them actually on the Hoops HD report. They're still technically under the radar, although I guess they're kind of a bit of a fuzzy gray area between under the radar and not under the radar right now.
I would say so. And again, I don't know how long it's going to take them to get back into the rankings. You just can't ignore this. They really, if you look at all of their paper, it's not good. If you look at their paper with Van Vliet, they've won, let me see here, 8 of their last 9.
Right. They have,
with the only loss being, I believe, in overtime at Seton Hall.
Seton Hall. Now they do have three fairly decent wins here since after that awful trip to Orlando. UNLV, Utah, and Evansville. All 3 of them are at home though. They're only going to get one chance really for a quality road win, and that's going to be the trip to Evansville.
Yeah, the Southern Illinois win, I mean, is fairly decent. They're 15-3 overall, and they clobbered them.
Yeah, but I think the Southern Illinois team is a fraud here.
Well, they did very little to prove you wrong. So,
but let's talk a little bit Evansville. Can this team get into the field without the at-large bid? Given that they really don't have that high quality win, but they are 15-3 in a fairly highly ranked conference.
We've seen it before. It's rare, but we've seen teams get inside the bubble without any top 50 wins or any RPI top 50 wins. They're generally outright first place finishers with solid RPIs. So you're not talking about a huge margin for error, but their numbers should go up a little bit. If they go out there and they win at Southern Illinois, who isn't strong as you indicated, but from an RPI and power rating standpoint, I still think you get a little bit of a boost from winning there since their record is so good. If they get the win at Wichita,
home against Wichita,
yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, if they get the home win against Wichita, I think it's possible. I really do.
I think that is almost a must-win game for them, that home game against Wichita. I think they can afford to lose 1, maybe even 2 more games the rest of the way here and get in that large bid, but it can't be that Wichita game because they need that notable win on the profile.
Right. If they don't beat Wichita, then they'll probably need to beat them in the conference tournament, which would be the championship game.
Right. Northeast Conference. One of our favorite conferences.
It is.
We're sitting here with 5 teams up to a 3-1 start, and I think this is going to be a dogfight. I think this is still anybody's league here throughout. It's going to be that way all season.
Yeah, and God, what a fun league to watch. I mean, Wagner right in there. A little surprised with Fairleigh Dickinson. I think you liked them. I wasn't that big
I did not. I was not high on them. I thought they were going to finish down towards the bottom of the standings. Off to a 3-1 start. Probably one of the more surprising under the radar teams of the country so far. Since they've gone to conference play.
And again, and this is what one of the things we love about Under the Radar in a sports culture where we have, again, teams leaving cities in the NFL to move into $2 billion stadiums. There's something, I don't know, tangible or real or refreshing about the Northeast Conference in the venues they play in and the kinds of schools they are and how rowdy it is and how I love this league. I really do. I watch it all the time. All the games are streamed. You could just put it on and just you can feel the atmosphere coming at you out of the TV.
It doesn't really matter what two teams in this league match up.
Yeah.
It's always entertaining. It's always fun. And yes, you're playing. This is a conference that's probably playing for a trip to Dayton. And if some miracle happens, they'll win the game in Dayton, and they'll get to play a 1 seed and get destroyed in the round of 64. But watching these teams play, watching the conference tournament, which is on home courts the way it should be,
it is
always exciting. I mean, what a great game last year that was. Robert Morris and St. Francis Brooklyn, the championship game.
Oh, it was fantastic. And I love how everything builds to that because you can watch the regular season and there's stakes because it is at campus sites. And that is their title. I mean, who cares if they go to Dayton? Who cares if they're on the 16 line? I mean, it's still a competitive league within the league itself. It's a fun league. I really do like it. And we're not saying that to poke. I genuinely love this league.
I agree with you. I think this is. There are some of these underrated conferences, which it's almost painful to watch some of the games. Southland, but but watching the Northeast Conference is just a fun thing to watch. Yeah. And but let's move over to the Ohio Valley Conference. The Ohio Valley, is another conference that there are some games that are painful to watch, but it also has some great games as well. So it's kind of more of in the middle for me personally.
Yeah.
Tennessee Tech finally lost to their first conference game today in the under the radar game of the day, losing at UT Martin. But that finally puts Belmont at a tie for the best record in the conference, where they think they're going to stay the rest of the season.
I think so too. No home loss or no losses at all for Belmont. I'm not expecting them to run the table. Eastern Kentucky has shown moments of being good, but nobody's really looked as good as Belmont.
Tennessee State also 12-4 overall, but not. Actually, a big game coming up here tomorrow night for Belmont. They're hosting Murray State. That's the only regular season matchup of these two.
Yeah.
Murray very down this year. It's not, so I think Belmont should cruise in this game. But that's always that's been a big rivalry the last few years here in the conference.
Yeah, it has. I don't think. I think that I think Murray is way overmatched this year. They just don't have it.
As far as their division goes, it has been the Eastern Kentucky. Belmont has been the last few years the battle there. Interestingly, they don't play the first game against theirs until February 6th, then again on the February 18th. So a little backload on the schedule there for that Eastern Kentucky games. Over the Patriot League, David, beginning of the season, you were all over this Bucknell team, and I wasn't there with you. And there they are, 5-0 in first place in the league.
Yeah, they've looked, at least since conference play has started, they've looked better than anybody else. I'm surprised at Navy. Again, the team that I really liked going in the conference play, although not at the beginning of the year, was Army. Navy right behind them at 4-1.
4-1. They were down to Loyola most of the game tonight. Came back and did get a fairly nice win tonight over Loyola. So that kind of keeps them right up there. And at 13-5, that's the best overall record of the conference.
Right. Another conference we love, Bucknell, good atmosphere. They've actually had they're actually kind of storied within the last 10 years, getting inside the bubble one year with a 9 seed, going to the round of 32 a couple times. Loyola, Maryland is on their way up. Boston U has one of the greatest venues that they almost never use.
No, not this year. They every single home game was at the Roof this year.
Oh, it's fantastic. And again,
it's above Agganis Arena, which is the big hockey arena there. For a couple of years, they were almost playing no games up there on the Roof. This year, every single home game for BU is scheduled in the Roof. Props to BU. I give them huge credit for that.
Yeah, and we want Boston U to finish on the top half of the bracket so we can see a conference tournament team on the Roof. But again, PatriotLeague.org. All this, by the way, on our website, all this on Chad's streaming guide where you can watch all these games. But another, just tremendously entertaining league.
Over in the Southern Conference.
Not a tremendously entertaining league.
No, there's a few teams that are entertaining here.
Excuse me.
Southern Conference. Yes. Southern Conference is a pretty entertaining league, but we had a major upset here in the SoCon the past weekend as Chattanooga went to Furman, not only lost, but lost by 15 points.
Yeah.
It was ugly.
And again, the situation for Chattanooga, as is the situation for any under the radar league or team that puts some meat on their schedule out of conference, is that you're basically playing not to screw up. Furman only has one loss. It's not easy to go to Furman. It's not easy to go to Furman with a bullseye on your back. But if you are a tournament caliber team, you're expected to win those types of games most of the time. Is Chattanooga out of strikes? I don't think they are, but I do think that they're down to their last one.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think Chattanooga pretty much needs to win out the rest of the way if they want to be able to suffer a loss in the conference tournament and be on serious NCAA tournament consideration. That Furman loss, actually, Furman might be a team to keep a bit of an eye on here. If you remember, Furman entered the conference tournament dead last, the number 10 seed last year, the SoCon, made a run to the championship game, and it was actually in a pretty close game with Wofford, which they finally lost there. But it was almost was one of the most amazing. It was actually a 3-point loss in the championship game to Wofford. Almost one of the most amazing conference tournament stories we've ever seen last year.
Oh yeah, it would have been crazy.
Over in the Southland, we actually have 4 teams that are sitting here undefeated, believe it or not, including in them SFA. David, do you want to say anything about this conference?
Not really. Sam Houston State, I'm a little bit surprised at how well they've done, and Corpus Christi has a bloated record, albeit not against really strong competition.
A bloated record, but the highest power rating numbers, including a top 100 RPI for Corpus Christi. In part because they did beat Our Lady of the Lake, who beat Incarnate Word, who beat St. John's, who beat Syracuse, who beat UConn. Yeah, I mean, it's, they have a win over at Elon, which kind of helps them, their numbers a little bit too. That's such a fairly decent quality win there by under the radar standards.
Right.
And they beat that Furman team we were just talking about. But it'll be interesting to see when they play each other. SFA doesn't play them until January 30th, though, and and then February 13th. One of our favorite conferences is the SWAC, and I talked about it all off season when they were sitting there at 1-11 heading into conference play, but Texas Southern off to a 3-0 conference start.
Yeah,
and David, I think this is going to be your conference champion right here.
I think so too. I was really big on Southern, especially how well they played in a lot of their out of conference games. They're 2-2, and Texas Southern. They've looked the best so far. I think you're right. I think they're going to be our first place finisher.
Right. Of course, we do want to very quickly mention the fact that sitting here right in the middle of the pack is Grambling, which I don't remember ever seeing before. So
right, yeah.
2 conference wins already, and we'll see if they can pick up a few more. The Summit League. We're talking about teams that may or may not be out of strikes. What about the South Dakota State after a very disappointing loss last Thursday night at IUPUI?
I'll say this. They need to win out just to get into the conversation. There's just not really anything there. If they go to North Dakota State and win, that's probably the best opportunity. Well, IPFW, I've kind of forgot about them a little bit. Watched them play the other night. They're kind of impressive, but what about them as being better than South Dakota State? I've kind of considered it. They went. So if they can win,
we're actually going to find out here tomorrow night as Fort Wayne, as South Dakota State will be hosting Fort Wayne tomorrow night. So
and again, if Fort Wayne wins that game, you got to start thinking about them as being the favorites to win the conference.
In fact, you may see that as the under the radar game of the day tomorrow. Just a little preview there. Another team, though, to keep an eye on here in the Summit, in their first year eligible for the postseason, they did not get a waiver the last 4 seasons. But Nebraska Omaha also off to a 4-0 conference start, including a nice win at North Dakota State.
Yeah, kind of a surprising win there too. North Dakota State. I've been more disappointed in them than most under the radar teams. Old Dominion, I'm probably the most disappointed in, but North Dakota State had so much coming back this year. I was just expecting them to be a lot better. But having said that, that's a really nice win for Omaha.
That's a nice win. And Omaha also was one of only 2 teams this season to beat the Lopes.
Yeah.
So another huge win for Omaha there when they went and won a game at Grand Canyon. Actually, were down big in that game and made a huge comeback to beat the Lopes.
Yeah.
Sun Belt Conference. I still think we're talking 2 bids out of the Sun Belt at the moment because – amazingly, I thought that Little Rock and Arlington would start running into trouble when they got to conference play, and so far they're both undefeated.
Yeah, I think Arlington way up there. I like both these teams. I definitely think there's room for both of them inside the bubble, especially if they run away from the league, which it looks like they're good enough to do.
David,
yeah.
can you guess what the January 23rd under the radar game of the day will be?
I've been trying to figure that out. I don't know. I have a
Uh,
sneaking suspicion it might be. Do the Lopes play that day?
it will be Arkansas Little Rock at Texas Arlington.
Okay.
I will pretty much guarantee that at this point. That is a huge game coming up here. Now, in between there, Arkansas State is going to be is going to be hosting Little Rock coming up here. They've also got Arlington on January 21st. Could make a little bit of noise. They are sitting here at 4-0 in conference, but I think it's a fraudulent 4-0 myself.
Mm-hmm.
I know you want to talk about a team over in the West Coast Conference, David. The St. Mary's Gales. I know you ripped me apart for ranking them as my 8th team out of the field this week. So,
well, again, they've done nothing other than beat sub-tournament caliber teams at home. They almost won at Cal. That would have been a great win, but it almost doesn't cut it. Pepperdine, and again, they haven't lost at home, but it's still the kind of game that if you're a tournament caliber team, you need to be able to win, and they didn't. They haven't done really anything other than hold serve against weak teams.
Well, I think the home. I mean, again, we're talking home wins, but they've had a home win over a UC Irvine team that we like, a home win over a Pac-12 team in Stanford, and a home win over a BYU team that is not completely out of the picture for an at-large bid at this point either.
I mean, yeah, they would need to win out, but I mean, if St. Mary's runs the table, yeah, they'll be in. But they, again, like so many teams, they just didn't give themselves the chances they needed to out of conference, in my opinion.
Well, we'll see here because I think that St. Mary's is could have such a bloated record especially if they can split with Gonzaga, win the game at BYU, and pretty much run the table with everything else, including winning that final game of the season over the Lopes. I think that and then make a run to the conference tournament title game, they may have such a bloated record that they're going to find a way in.
Yeah.
Even if they don't have that notable road win that you want them to have.
They need to get it.
Over in the WAC, what an amazing game we had this weekend. One of the most exciting finishes I've seen all season outside of Kansas, Oklahoma. Court storming. Dan Marley was going nuts. Great win for the Lopes over New Mexico State. They're their number one rival in the conference.
Right. And again, we need this waiver. They're the best team in the conference. They are more than acclimated. I think that whatever the transition process is supposed to acclimate them to or help them to, they've done. We need this waiver.
I think I agree with you. We need this waiver. David, we do have, I guess, another question that we mention every now and then. Maybe it's time to at least throw a bit of an answer out there on it. And that is, if the waiver does not happen.
Well, why wouldn't it? I don't understand the premise of your question here.
The premise of my question is
just hypothetical. Okay.
If something happens,
okay,
if for some reason we do not get a waiver, who do you think gets the automatic bid, or at least gets the number one seed in the conference tournament?
There's a team out there that's so painful to watch, at least when they're playing at home, because of just the paint by numbers set that is their court. But I don't know. I kind of like I like Bakersfield. But what we have here is
we finally got it up on the screen. We mentioned it earlier in the show. Yeah, David, can you show us what Sports Illustrated did this week?
Well, let's see if we can zoom in on that one line there. Can we zoom in there, Chad? Can you blow that up for us? Well, anyway.
Here we go. This should be blowing up right now.
Yes, there we go. You can see right there the Grand Canyon Antelopes are being projected into the field. I think Sports Illustrated does not lie, Chad. The waiver is going to happen. They're
2016 NCAA Tournament Bracket Watch. Yes. I don't agree with them being on the 16 line, but
I don't
hey, you know what? And I think they could beat St. Francis of PA if this happens. Kansas better watch out.
Oh yeah.
Watch out for Thunder Dan. And then Indiana. Actually, you know what? They got Chattanooga there as a 9 seed too. That's David, you got to be liking that line there too.
Oh yeah.
so,
So Chattanooga and Grand Canyon in the round of 32.
yeah, how about that? And then the winner gets Little Rock in the Elite Eight.
What a bracket!
Final Four, we could be matching up with Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and on the way. But
yeah.
But like you said, Bakersfield might be the next best team beyond the Lopes in this conference at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'd agree with that. On that note, we're going to do a quick preview of some upcoming games and then quickly get through our top 10 because we've been running a little bit long here. But coming up tomorrow night here, Thursday night, we mentioned we got that UAB Old Dominion game. We also have Little Rock is going to be hosting Appalachian State, the Murray State Belmont game. Hawaii finally on the road at UC Riverside. And another good Big West game, Irvine at Long Beach.
Yeah.
The game of the week in terms of under the radar games, I think, comes up Friday night with that Monmouth at Iona game.
That one's huge. And again, we're talking at-large implications there in a big way.
We've got a few more on Saturday. A couple of Conference USA matchup. Middle Tennessee's at Old Dominion. Brooklyn at Bryant. LIU Brooklyn at Bryant in a good Northeast game. South Dakota State's going to be at North Dakota State coming off of that Fort Wayne game. So tough week ahead here for South Dakota State.
Yeah.
Also keep an eye on here for Saturday. Texas Southern at Jackson State. The two best teams in the SWAC as of the moment.
Yeah. So I don't. Yeah, and I like Texas Southern in that. I just like how they've been playing recently.
And the Lopes will be playing Saturday night. They'll be hosting Utah Valley, looking for another conference win.
Yeah. They might run they might run the table in the conference.
Coming off that big Monmouth-Iona game, Iona will be at Ryder on Sunday, and Monmouth will be hosting Siena on Monday. Two tough tests for both those teams. See if whoever gets the win may have a little bit of a hangover here.
Right. And is Monmouth, are they ready to play at home? It's not a familiar place for them. It's going to feel like a road game. They've been there so infrequently.
Here's a pretty good game in the MEAC among two of the better teams so far coming up Monday night. Also, Hampton's at North Carolina Central. If you ever wanted to focus in on a MEAC game, that may be one of the few.
Yeah.
Also taking a look here coming up on Tuesday night, the Central Michigan at Northern Illinois game. I think could be a key game in the MAC West, which is where we started the show at.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go right to our top 10s, David. Number one overall, I've got the Wichita State Shockers.
Okay, yeah, I guess they probably are the best team at this point, but I still like Valpo. I think I have them as my number one.
Okay. I've got Wichita 1. I got Valpo 2 and Monmouth 3.
Yeah, I've got Monmouth 2 and I believe Wichita 3. What do I have? What? Yeah, I have Monmouth 2 and Wichita 3. Okay. And Monmouth, it's just more because I just think they've done more.
Right. My 4 and 5 are Little Rock and Arlington. They've kind of been net back-to-back in my polls all season long.
I guess you dropped Chattanooga after the loss at Furman.
I did. I've actually dropped Chattanooga all the way down to 8th. I have Evansville at 6th, and debuting in the field this week, I've got UAB at 7.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man, you have UAB way up there. So you still like them more than – are you to the point where you like them more than La Tech now?
Yeah, well, La Tech suffered a loss this week. The team just slipped my mind here. I'll get that up in a second here. But Louisiana Tech, when they lost their first conference game, now I know they've got a bloated overall record of 13-3, but they lost the home game to Old Dominion this week. They needed overtime to beat Charlotte at home. I'm very unimpressed with Louisiana Tech this week, and I've moved them out of – I not even give them an honorable mention anymore at the moment.
Right, but a big game for UAB tomorrow. We'll see what they can do at Old Dominion, who has been disappointing but is still undefeated at home.
Right. Rounding out my top 10, I've got Chattanooga at 8, the Lopes at 9, and I've got the Bows. I've got Hawaii there at number 10.
Yeah. So I have Bill and Mary in mine. It looks like you dropped them out of yours. I still really like them. And
I'm giving them an honorable mention, along with St. Mary's an honorable mention as well.
Yeah. So who else? I think that was Bill and Mary was the only team I had in mind that you did not have in yours. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, David, anything else you want to mention in terms of these under-the-radar teams?
Not so much these teams. This is our first podcast since the passing of former Butler player Andrew Smith. I realize Butler is not currently under the radar, and when he was playing, I don't know if we were doing our shows. I guess it was on Crimson Cast, and it was just podcast, no video. But Butler certainly fit that demographic for at the time he played for them. Uh, we have a lot of fun on the show, Chad. We talk about games, we go back and forth, but I really was sad to hear the news. I feel so horrible for his family, his friends, his teammates, the people that knew him. You and I are both around college sports. It's something that we've dealt with before, seeing student athletes, die while their student athletes or pass away, or later on in the years after getting to know them. I just feel so badly for him and his family and in the Butler community.
Yeah, this was a tragic loss, and he's definitely going to be missed here. We can't say enough. We know that he was not doing good shape when we did our last podcast just a few nights ago, and we did lose him this week. And I just want to send out our thoughts and prayers to his family in this tough time. But I agree with you. It's absolute shame to lose somebody so young to such a horrible disease.
And whatever it is they're feeling, they're probably it's a lot of things. It's probably sadness, maybe some anger, and it makes sense to be angry because it isn't fair.
But on that note, I guess we do want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We'll be back, I believe, tomorrow night. We'll be doing another one of our bracket rundown shows. We'll have all kinds of posts coming up on the website, Under the Radar Games of the Day. And have a good evening, everybody. Take care.